Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to just completely decode the real unit economics of the direct consumer world.
Right, the DTC space.
Exactly. And we actually have our hands on a stack of highly confidential, completely anonymized financial data sets from a real fast-growing apparel brand. We're going straight into the P&L statements, the warehouse receipts, the ad dashboards, basically figuring out exactly how a modern e-commerce business makes and loses money.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note we're keeping the brand totally anonymous, just to protect their team.
Yep.
But everything we're discussing today, the unit economics, the logistics, the marketing spend, it all reflects their actual operational reality.
Oh, absolutely.
And it really reflects the broader norms of the premium apparel category, too.
Yeah.
We're looking at the raw, unfiltered economics of selling physical goods on the internet right now.
Which brings us to a very specific product in their lineup. Like, I want you to picture this. You're out on a Friday night. Maybe you're grabbing a drink at a nice cocktail bar or, I don't know, waiting by the valet stand. And you see someone wearing just an absolutely perfect blazer. It catches the light right. The fit is impeccable. The fabric has that effortless, slightly rumpled sophistication. You know the exact look I mean.
Oh, yeah. The quiet luxury vibe.
Yes. And because you're curious, you ask them about it. They tell you it's from this new fast-growing DTC brand. You look it up on your phone right there. And it's a premium linen blazer, and the price tag is $285.
It's the ultimate hero product. I mean, it's the kind of flagship item that basically single-handedly builds a brand's identity. It drives massive top-line revenue and brings all these new customers into the ecosystem.
And it is just flying off the virtual shelves. The ads are everywhere. Everyone wants one. But here's the central hook of our source material today. Why would a brand selling a wildly popular $285 blazer be quietly bleeding money behind the scenes?
Because they were essentially scaling their own losses week after week. I mean, they had a product that people genuinely loved. They had massive sales volume, and yet, literally, the more they sold, the closer they edged toward running out of cash.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how a company selling a $285 item can actually be losing money, we need to think about a brand's revenue kind of like a beautiful, shiny iceberg.
Okay, I like that.
Right. Like when you're the consumer, you only see what's above the water. That's the premium price tag, the beautiful website, the aesthetic Instagram feed. But today's deep dive is really about strapping on our scuba gear to see the massive hidden costs lurking right below the surface.
And what's so fascinating here is how that shiny iceberg visual above the water, it doesn't just fool the consumer, it actually traps the founders themselves.
Oh, totally.
It's this phenomenon we can call the trap of gross margins. It's essentially a bedtime story founders tell themselves.
Yeah, the story always starts with that gross margin. In the premium apparel world, the numbers just look incredibly seductive on paper. Like the typical gross margin is usually an impressive 55 to 70%.
Right, which feels like this massive financial cushion. I mean, if you think you're keeping 70 cents on every dollar of revenue just on the product side, it feels like you have all this room to operate.
You feel invincible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You look at that margin and think, oh, I can afford the best marketing, the thickest packaging, the best team. But our sources show that after you account for all the hidden operational costs, the actual net take-home pay for the brand drops to a mere 8 to 12%.
8 to 12%. I mean, that is just a massive drop from 70%.
It is. And this exact gap between the 70% gross and the 8% net, that's the dark space where perfectly good businesses slowly fail. And they fail because their daily software dashboards are literally telling them they're winning.
Right, the line is going up.
Exactly. The revenue line is going up, the gross margin looks healthy. They feel like they're scaling a mountain, but they're actually just digging a much deeper hole.
See, I have to push back here just on behalf of anyone listening who's ever run a basic business spreadsheet. Wait, if a brand is pocketing 70% on a product right out of the factory gate, how on earth are they losing almost all of it before it hits the bank account?
Well,
I mean, if the Meta Ads dashboard says the return on ad spend, the ROAS, is a solid 2.0, shouldn't they basically be doubling their money?
you'd think so, right.
Okay.
But that assumption is exactly what kills these brands. To answer your question about where the money actually vanishes, we have to look at the physical journey of the product and systematically break down these hidden toll booths along the way.
Okay, toll booths.
Right. So when a blazer leaves the factory, it hits its first major toll booth, which is fulfillment.
The journey from the warehouse to the customer. And you absolutely cannot reach the customer without paying it. I kind of think of fulfillment as a mandatory toll booth on a highway. Like you have the best blazer in the world, but if it stays in the warehouse, it's completely worthless.
Exactly. In the DTC world, when that inventory hits the 3PL, the third-party logistics center, the meter just starts running. Our data shows that just to fulfill a standard domestic order, the all-in cost runs between $8 and $15.
Wow, $8 to $15 just to put an item in a box and hand it to a delivery driver.
Yeah, and that covers the labor of a human being actually walking through an aisle, picking the blazer off a shelf, scanning the barcode, plus the packing materials and the actual postage. And here's where the premium aspect actively works against you.
Because of the packaging.
Exactly. If you want that luxury unboxing experience, the thick custom boxes, the beautiful tissue paper, the personalized note, that pushes your fulfillment cost to the absolute top of that $8 to $15 range.
So if you want your customer driving in the luxury lane, that toll takes a massive bite out of your wallet before you've even paid for the gas, which in this case is the advertising.
Which brings us right back to your point about the Meta Ads dashboard. So the brand in our data set was heavily reliant on Meta Ads to drive top-line revenue, and their dashboard was telling them they had a flat 2.0 ROAS. They spend $1, they make $2.
Right, and I've literally seen founders post screenshots of a 2.0 ROAS on social media and pop champagne over it. It sounds amazing.
It sounds great until you factor in the physical reality of e-commerce. Because the brand had a 22% return rate. That means more than 1 in 5 blazers was coming back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when you mathematically model a 22% return rate against all those hidden costs we just talked about, their actual break-even ROAS, the exact point where they stopped losing money, was 2.41.
Wait, really? So they were celebrating a 2.0, but the actual floor just to not lose money was 2.41.
Yeah, exactly. Because of this, hitting a quote-unquote flat 2.0 ROAS meant they were actively losing money with every single sale. Despite what the ad dashboard claimed. They were literally paying the acquisition costs for customers who ultimately handed the product back.
That is genuinely terrifying. I mean, you're optimizing your entire marketing team around a metric that is structurally designed to bankrupt you.
It's the Meta Ads trap.
Oh, okay. We need to talk more about those returns. Because once the blazer gets to the customer, after you've paid the highway tolls, the biggest financial danger is what happens if the customer sends it back.
Right, transitioning from acquisition to the cost of returns. The silent killer.
Because people tend to think of a return as just a reversed sale, like hitting undo on a keyboard. The customer gets their $285 back, the brand gets the blazer back, and we're all back to square one.
That is a very dangerous misconception. A return is not an undo button. A return actively costs money. It's essentially reverse manufacturing. Just think about the anatomy of a return from the source data. First, the brand usually pays for the return shipping label. Then the package actually has to arrive back at the warehouse loading dock.
So someone has to physically open the box, inspect the garment for stains, or maybe steam out the wrinkles from it being shoved back in a mailer, repackage it, and get it back onto the correct shelf.
Exactly.
That labor alone has to be, what, like $10, $15?
It's actually much worse. The data shows that processing a single return runs between $21 and $46.
$21 to $46 just to put an item back on a shelf.
Yeah, and that's before you even factor in the risk of not being able to resell it. What if it smells like perfume? What if it's the end of the season and you have to mark it down? The physical cost of moving the item backwards is just devastating.
Okay, we have to do the visual math on this because the source material breaks down the exact cost stack for this $285 blazer, and it is, well, it's incredibly illuminating.
Let's do it.
Imagine a customer hands you $285. You immediately hand $63 to the factory. That's the COGS, the product cost.
Right, $63 just for the physical item to exist.
Then you pass $14 to the 3PL for that fulfillment toll booth. Then you hand $45 to Meta in ad spend just to acquire the order. Then you pass $11 to your platform and payment processors.
But here comes the most crucial part of the stack. The brand calculated an invisible return cost allocation of $34 per unit.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. How did they arrive at $34?
So they took their actual return rate for this specific blazer, which was an alarming 30%. They multiplied that by the cost to process a single return, which they calculated at $38.
Okay.
And then they took that total burden and spread it across all the units they shipped.
Wait, You're telling me that even on the blazers that a customer keeps and absolutely loves, the brand is essentially paying a $34 tax to cover the cost of all the other people who sent theirs back?
That's exactly right. Every kept blazer carries the financial weight of the returned ones. So if we tally up that variable cost stack, 63 for the product, 14 for fulfillment, 45 for ads, 11 for fees, and 34 for that return allocation,
That adds up to a total variable cost of $167.
which leaves a contribution margin of $118. That's about a 41% contribution margin on the initial transaction before overhead.
So what's the final net reality on the units that actually stay sold?
On the units that actually stay sold, after you strip away all those variable costs, they net about $72 per kept unit.
$72 of actual margin on a $285 premium blazer. That is wild.
It's roughly a 25% margin. And as the source notes, if you can actually clear 25% on a kept unit, that's a real sustainable business. But getting there requires extreme operational discipline.
I mean, clearly. Because if the return tax is eating that much margin, they can't just keep pouring money into meta ads. They have to fix the leak. So how did they save themselves? The source lays out 5 levers they pulled, right?
Yeah, 5 levers. Lever number 1 is about facing reality. You must know your real break-even ROAS. You have to use your actual return rates, not target rates. If you don't know your real floor, you're flying blind.
Right. No more vanity metrics.
Exactly. And lever 2 connects directly to that. You have to put a strict dollar tag on each return. You can't just treat returns as a generalized percentage. You have to model that per return processing cost across all ship units, like they did with the $38.
Which brings the pain right into focus. But, acknowledging the cost doesn't actually stop the returns from happening.
No, it doesn't, which is why lever 3 is to aggressively attack the return rate and protect that contribution margin. The brand realized they had an epidemic of what they called brash returns.
Oh, brash returns. I actually love that term. Like when you order 3 sizes of a blazer just to see which one fits, fully intending to send 2 of them back. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Most people are. It's super common, and it's driven by friction and uncertainty. So to combat this, the brand got highly tactical. They dramatically improved their garment measurements online. They completely rewrote their size guidance to be more conversational.
And didn't they also add a post-purchase first wear guide? I thought that was so smart.
Yes, they started educating the customer on how the premium linen should feel, how it naturally wrinkles, setting expectations before the customer even opened the box.
Oh, wow. So if someone isn't used to high-end linen, they don't just open it, see wrinkles, and immediately return it.
Exactly. They changed the perceived value. And the source makes a great point here. If your ROAS is stuck at 2.0, you basically only have 2 survival options. You have to lower that return rate, or you must increase your average order value, like with bundles or upsells, just to survive.
Okay, so that fixes the psychology side. But what about the warehouse side? That brings us to lever 4, auditing the toll booths.
Right. You have to line item that $8 to $15 fulfillment cost, the pick and pack labor, the packaging, the shipping, and you trim anything that doesn't elevate the customer's perceived quality.
So what does this all mean for the unboxing experience? Like, how does a premium brand trim fulfillment costs without making the customer feel like their $285 blazer just arrived in a cheap garbage bag?
That's the real tightrope walk.
Yeah.
Trimming cost doesn't mean eliminating quality. It means eliminating waste. So maybe you stop using an oversized, heavy box that costs way more to ship and use a perfectly sized, sleek mailer instead.
Right.
Or you swap out expensive promotional inserts for a beautifully designed QR code printed right on the tissue paper. It still feels premium, but it's operationally smarter.
That makes a lot of sense. And then the final lever, lever 5, is pressure testing your price against your COGS.
Yes. The source points out that having a $63 COGS on a $285 item is literally the only thing that left room for the rest of that massive cost stack.
So if that $63 cost drifts any higher, like fabric prices go up, ads and returns would have to be absolutely flawless just to maintain that tiny 8 to 12% net.
There's simply no room for error, which really brings us to the ultimate takeaway from the source text. Gross margin is just a bedtime story.
Yeah.
The only truth a business can actually manage is the contribution margin after ads, returns, and fees.
I love that. And I think this connects all of us. Even if you aren't an apparel founder, this deep dive is a masterclass in looking past vanity metrics.
Absolutely.
Whether you're managing a corporate budget, a side hustle, or even just your personal finances, you have to look out for the hidden toll booths and return taxes in your own life. It's so easy to look at the shiny iceberg, the top-line number, and ignore the massive costs below the surface.
You really have to continually ask what your actual net reality is.
You do. And looking at how fragile this entire ecosystem is, it leaves me with this final thought. The source noted that a mere 3-point improvement in return rate completely compounds through break-even, ROAS, and cash flow.
It's a huge swing.
Right. So if a tiny 3% shift in returns can literally make or break a premium brand's survival, are we approaching the end of the free returns era in online shopping altogether?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, how long can the retail industry actually sustain this hidden bleeding before the cost is permanently passed on to us, the consumers? Definitely something to mull over next time you hit add to cart. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.